Hi readers, it's Lori. Welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper, and I am happy to be here today to share with you my February book haul, which is a mixture of physical as well as some digital. And I think I have 11 books to talk about today. One of them is a Kindle Unlimited, so it's not a permanent addition to my collection, but several of these are just additions to my collection that I didn't own. So that is, good too, because I won't have to add these to my TBR. And some of them I have to add to my TBR. So let's get started. I also might mention to you that I was planning to do this book call today. It's Saturday where I am, March 1st, first day of March. And I was going to do this video today for sure. And then I got an invitation from my partner to go to a yard sale, a garage sale in our neighborhood. It was both, actually. There was stuff in the yard, there was stuff in the garage. And so I said, oh, yeah, sure. And I ended up buying more books, but I'm not hauling those today because those are March books. And those also were collections that I have added to. So stay tuned for March. But for today, let's talk about what I hauled in the month of February. I started off with one that I got, I think, the very first day of February, and that was The Twist of a Knife by Anthony Horowitz. This one is the fourth in the Horowitz and Hawthorne series by this author. I love this series because Anthony Horowitz, who's a real life screenwriter and novelist, is written into these books as himself, and so he is one of the characters. He is the Horowitz character, and then there is Hawthorne, who is a kind of a surly, grumpy old guy who's a detective, and he tries to solve murders his way. And Anthony Horowitz has now discovered that while he was at first shadowing him, which is how this began, shadowing him and writing about his detective work, now they have become partners in solving these crimes. And so I really love these, and I am not ready for this one yet, though, but it was $5 at Ollie's, so that's why I got it. There is one more before this that I need to read to get in order, and so that's on my list to do soon, but I'm super happy that I found that one. Then my Book of the Month Club selections, I have three that I picked this last time, but one of them I've already read, so I'm going to start with that. That's Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. I read this for Mardi Gras Readathon a while ago, and I loved it. It is one of my all-time favorite books. I talk about it with a lot of people, including having talked about it here, and I just got lost and immersed in this family saga, and I love cover, this colorful cover. I wanted to make sure I owned it, but I also wanted to make sure that I read it again at some point because it's that good. So I have it on audio, I think, or ebook maybe, but now I have it in two formats, which isn't unusual. So this is about the death of Eleanor Bennett, who was a quite remarkable woman. She's Caribbean, and she has made a traditional Caribbean black cake, which is a family history drawn down from generations of people in their culture. And the black cake is significant and symbolic. So she's made this for them because she knows that she will be dying. And she shares with her two children, Byron and Benny, the story of her life and things they never knew about, how this life of hers evolved. And she will not let them eat the black cake or do anything until they have listened to her story or read her story. So the attorney sets this up for them, and the book is about them in present day now and again, but also her tremendous life. I just fell in love with this so very much. I would like to get Good Dirt as well, and I almost got it, but I decided I would go with what I was certain of and watch the reviews come in and see what people were saying and thinking, and then I would decide if I thought Good Dirt was going to work for me. So far, I think it will. I have one friend who doesn't like it. I think she DNF'd it, but she and I have very different tastes. We almost never read the same books. So I'm not surprised by that. It's just not her jam. I feel good about Good Dirt, and I feel good about Charmaine Wilkerson, so I'm just going to keep watching. But in the meantime, I grabbed this because it was available as an add-on, and I could have reread that this Mardi Gras season if I didn't have other stuff going on. Then the next book was one that I found out about in January that was coming out, and I was so excited when I found out about it that I actually got it on audio at Libro.fm, but then it was a Book of the Month Club selection too. And yes, I do duplicate those sometimes, not often, but in this case, I felt like I really wanted the hard copy. And it is not a long book, and I have actually started this one, listening to it and reading it physically as well. Penitence by Kristen Koval. I think this is her debut novel, and this one is, as I mentioned before, although I kind of botched this plot a little bit, now I'm realizing. This is about a 13-year-old girl who is in prison for having killed her brother, and she called the police or the 911 and said, "I killed my brother." So she's confessed to it. Her parents are now at this incredible place in their lives where they have lost their son and they have lost their daughter to incarceration for the moment, and I'm certain they feel like they're losing their minds, but this then sort of evolves into the story of what actually happened while they try to get her representation. I originally thought that this was a different family relationship that we are talking about, but when I started reading this, I realized that this is that the person that they hire to be an attorney for them is their parents, her parents' friend, and that the people that she grew up with as a child, their neighbor, and it is her son that this particular character, the mom, was in a relationship with. So the mom's name is something with an A, Angie, and so Angie had a relationship with this attorney's son, and so it's an evolution of what happened with them too, because there's lots of stuff you find out pretty much right away that has happened that impacted their relationships and whether or not they're still, communicating. And of course, the grief of having lost their child. And I can't wait to see what happens. I feel like I will be reading this one super quick. All right, the next one is also blue. Blackwood's Blue Sky by Eowyn Ivey. I have The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. I've mentioned I didn't read that, but I definitely want to get to that as well as this. It's interesting because I was thinking about this the other day. Last year, I said I don't read romance, and I read a bunch of romance, and I continued to enjoy it. And then I continued last year to also say, though, I don't read fantasy, I don't read fantasy. And so this one is definitely magical realism. I would not say it's a world building fantasy novel, but it is both fiction and magical realism, I'm certain. So this is a bit of a fairy tale that asks the question, can love save us from ourselves? Birdie is an alcoholic. She lives in Alaska. She lives alone, and she has a daughter, Emmeline. And so her life is kind of tricky sometimes. And Arthur Nielsen, who is now in town and comes in, he begins to connect with people in this community, and he brings Emmeline, the child, to safety because she gets lost in the woods. And so there's a relationship that happens then between the two of them that I don't know is a love story, but I think there's something that occurs because she got lost in the woods. Because it's talking about it being a bit of a dark fairy tale. So that's what I'm going by, but I don't know, and I'd like to go in fairly blind into this. But Eowyn Ivey was raised in Alaska, so she's used this as a setting as well. And I think The Snow Child was also set somewhere in the cold, wintry place, obviously. And she has a bookstore called Fireside Books in Palmer, Alaska. If any of you are ever in the area of Palmer, Alaska, you could support Eowyn Ivey, and also you could pick up her book. You'd probably get a signed copy. So that's my Book of the Month Club haul. 3 books there. This month I chose an audiobook for my Book of the Month Club selection. So here's the next one, which I also purchased to have on my collection because I've already read it. I got this on Pango. It's a great condition. as expected. I have really good luck on Pango. I've only had one time that somebody just didn't mail me the book and just ghosted me, so I got my money back. But Gail Godwin, this is book two in a series. I own the other one, which is called Father Melancholy's Daughter. I was going through my book inventory and my spreadsheet and scanning in my books into my Libib app, and I realized that I had a copy of this. I opened it up and the binding had broken, and it was just it looked horrible. It was old. It was a terrible copy. It was a used book when I purchased it, but over time it's just been sitting and it just broke off. So I was like, I can't have that. I have to have this book. It's one of my favorites. Like, I recommend it to people all the time. So I ordered it on Pango. So again, Father Melancholy's Daughter is about the child of a father, priest who is, I think he's Presbyterian, is he? I'm trying to remember. Episcopal. And so this is book two. So I don't want to tell you a whole lot about the series, except to say that this is it's a family driven plot, but it also talks about faith, and it also talks about coming to oneself and being with family, and in the ways in which our families move. I don't want to give away too much because I really think Father Melancholy's Daughter is an experience that you can really get lost in, especially if you don't have expectations. But I also think that in some cases, people don't have expectations and it didn't end up being what they wanted it to be. In my case, I really enjoyed both of these, and I definitely will reread them both, but in some people's minds, it just wasn't great. So Gail Godwin is from Alabama and grew up in Asheville, North Carolina. Happy, happy, happy. I also love books about faith, and so that worked out well for me. And then another book I've already read, but I have now added to my collection, and that is Moonflower Murders by Anthony Horowitz. I happened to be in the local Barnes and Noble this last month, and they had this, and I had some cash in my pocket, and I was itching to spend it. And so I grabbed this because I have Magpie Murders in paperback, but I don't have Moonflower Murders in paperback. And I loved this. I loved both of those. In fact, I think I like the Magpie and Moonflower Murder series better than I like the Horowitz and Hawthorne series. But this is the Susan Ryland series. So she was a publisher, Susan Ryland. And so these have books within a book, which a lot of people feel is a struggle, but I don't have such a problem with it. So this is one part, and then there's the book within the book, and then you get to read that book. And yeah, I really, really love these. And because now this is a series on PBS as well, as is Magpie Murders, I kind of want to watch the series, but I want to read it again. Will I be able to do that in the near future? Gosh, I hope so. I certainly do, but you never know. But I don't know that I'll let that stop me from. I'd like to rewatch Magpie Murders. I actually started rewatching Magpie Murders in November, and then I got distracted. I don't watch a lot of TV anymore, but the only TV I really seem to be able to finish are the shows that my partner and I and my family and I kind of commit to watching because we're all talking about it. We've done that with Schitt's Creek. We've done that with Ted Lasso. Now we're doing it with Severance. Just I think Paradise is going to be the next one because we started Paradise the other night. Sterling K. Brown, holy cow. I should do a whole video just on adaptations that I love that are mysterious and should be books. But nevertheless, I don't get to a lot of TV. So I really have to commit to watching these again or watching again Moonflower Murders for the first time. Let's talk about digital. I have 4 books that I got on Kindle this month. Now, I don't pay a lot of money for Kindle books. So also there's been a lot of controversy lately, and I know it's past the deadline, but there were a lot of people that were scrambling to do something with their Kindle titles, thinking they were going to take them away from them and that they were going to have to transfer them to their Kobo, which was quite an extensive process. And I felt like it was just something that I didn't need to do, nor did I really feel adept at doing. But a lot of people have done that. And really, it was quite complex. I did not do it, but when I was looking through my Kindle, because there's a fear, I guess, that Kindle can take your titles away at any point if it chooses to do so, if the company chooses to do so. I looked at my list of Kindle books, and there's a lot of books on that library that I don't necessarily think I'm ever going to read. And I probably got them free in some way or $2 or something, or I don't know. I mean, I get a lot of Kindle books free in different various ways. So I'm really kind of thinking about culling that down, not just because I'm worried about space, because I'm not. I'm nowhere near needing to worry about space on my Kindle, but really because it's just taking up like room in my brain and in my inventory essentially that I may not ever get to. I mean, some of these I bought when I first ended up with a Kindle account, and goodness knows they were just, not, I don't even know what possessed me to buy some of these. And then some of them I bought because I thought I would need them for work, and then they turned out not to be as helpful as I thought. And some of them I've read, but will I ever reread? Like, I don't know. So I'm playing with that. My reason for telling you this is, do you forever keep your Kindle or digital copies? Like, even audio? Like, do you keep those forever? Do you eventually say, oh, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm never going to listen to that again, or I'm never going to read that? Just let me know, because I'm really, yeah, I'm just really super curious about this and about how many books I'm holding on to in my heart, essentially, which I know sounds kind of campy and ridiculous, but I do. I mean, I really care about them all, and I want to care about them all. Let's just say that. Obviously, some of them I don't care enough about to keep, but there you go. Okay, so the first book I hauled in the month of February was Symphony of Secrets by Brendan Slocum, because it was one of my Mardi Gras readathon picks, and it was $2 or something. It was very, very cheap at that time. So I grabbed it, and I'm glad I did, because I read it on my Kindle. I have completed it. I feel good about that too. And I've been reading a lot on my Kindle lately, as I've shared with you before. So that really felt like a great, valuable purchase to me. So we'll talk about that in my recap of what I read in February, but Symphony of Secrets was the first one. Next, Amazon First Reads, which is something that you get as a benefit for being an Amazon member, Prime member, and they give you a selection of new releases every month. I think there's usually about 5 of them, and you can pick one, sometimes 2, from the First Reads group. I don't always pick one, but in this particular month I did, and this is Missing in Flight by Audrey J. Cole. I'll pop a picture of it up there too so you can see it as I'm talking about it, but this came out on March 1st. So today, when I'm filming this. So she is a USA Today best-selling author, and it's a thriller about a woman faced with the unthinkable. Her infant goes missing aboard a plane to New York. When she gets back to her seat, where I guess she went to the bathroom, this is always such a difficult decision. She left her child sleeping, and when she comes back, her child is not in the seat. The bassinet is empty. Liam is gone. I just can't imagine. And it was a long flight from Anchorage to New York. All the flight attendants are busy, and nobody, she felt like, could take care of this baby. And so he's gone. They try to find him. They can't find him. What happened to the baby? Missing in flight. Holy crap, right? So I feel like that one will be read soon, because I'm really yearning for these kinds of popcorny thrillers lately. And then I also got The Fall Risk by Abby Jimenez, which was an add-on for your first read, but it's a novella. Now, I recently was introduced to Abby Jimenez, and I read Just for the Summer last year, and I also got a couple more of her books that I'd like to get to sooner than later as well, in that trilogy anyway. But The Fall Risk was, again, a novella. It was a free first read. I thought I'd give it a try, and I actually have already read that too. Look at me. I know. So also not going to end up lingering on my TBR is this book. I really enjoyed this one. It was a surprise for me. It is also, when you first open it up, there's some significant warnings for sensitivity to domestic violence, stalking, It was not a completely light-hearted book for sure. And so, because this is my second Abby Jimenez, I don't know if this is her general way of writing, that there's like, because in the book I read just for the summer, there were some other things that were hard and difficult and, some trauma and other things like that. So I definitely see this as something I enjoy, but not everybody does. A lot of people I get want their love stories to just be flowery and beautiful and happy and funny. And this was funny at times, for sure, and beautiful and flowery, and sometimes very difficult and dark. So I don't want to tell you a whole lot about this at all, except to say that it's really about two neighbors, and they meet sort of unexpectedly as a result of something that happens to their apartment building. And it just builds from there. And I really loved it. I thought it was well written. I realized as I was reading this that Abby Jimenez hopefully forever stays one of my favorite new authors of this kind of genre. And I can't imagine not getting to the other two that I have on my shelves this year. And I think she has another one coming out too. I think so. Say You'll Remember Me comes out April 1st. So we're going to talk about that, I'm sure, very soon in my most anticipated reads. Stay tuned. And then another one I picked up is Winter Kill by Ragnar Jonasson. I realize now it's Jonasson. Someone had said to me the other day, it's Jonasson. It's much easier than you're making it. It's not German, which I know I can't help it. I have that German root in my life, but it's much easier than I was going for. This is the Dark Iceland series, which I want to begin very, very soon. The first one in that series is Snowblind. I already own that on Kindle. But when I see these in this series, this is number 6, I grab them when they're $1.99, whatever. And that's the case with this one too. So eventually I feel like I'll have this whole series on my Kindle. But for now, I just have a couple here and there. I don't want to look up what Winter Kill is about because I want to start with Snowblind. But all of these are set in Dark Iceland, obviously, the name of the series title, but they're set in this very, very cold climate. I just love these. I think he's really a great author, and I can't say enough about how these books really pull you quickly through. And so I feel like I will keep reading him and reading him and reading him. He's become one of my favorite authors of this particular time in my life, which is a time of adventure and new authors to me. So he's on my list. He's on my Kindle. And if you haven't read anything by him, I really recommend the Dark Iceland series or the Hidden Iceland series, which was a trilogy. I've said it before. I'm just going to say it again. You got to read it. You got to read book 1, 2, and then 3. Don't do it in any other order. That's my other caveat. The last one is Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. This one is my middle grade pick for middle grade March. You notice I got a lot of mysteries around me now, but this one is middle grade, and I've heard a lot of great things about this, including recently from Katie Cobb on currently reading, like I think it was a wrap up for 2024 that I listened to from the Patreon site, I'm pretty sure. I really thought, oh, I could get behind that, and middle grade March is coming up, so I've added it to my Kindle Unlimited stack. This one is about Amari and her brother Quentin, who goes missing. And I set this up before, but I'm just going to tell you again in case you didn't see that video. Amari finds a briefcase in her brother's closet. He's been gone for a while. Nobody seems to care what happened to him enough in her mind, and she wants to know what happened to him. So she finds this briefcase, and it's ticking. And inside of the briefcase is an invitation to a competition to receive a scholarship at some sort of magical school. And this is book 1, by the way, in the Supernatural Investigations series. I should tell you that because there's a number of these. And if I like this one, I can see myself reading all of them and maybe getting them and reading them with my granddaughter. And maybe my grandson will like it too if we read it to him because, he's not quite there. Nevertheless, Amari decides, I guess, to try to compete for this. It sounds a little bit like, what was that one with Rebecca Yarros? It's not Iron Flame. It's First Wing. I don't know. Gosh, I don't have it. I can't see it. Anyway, it sounds like that, only middle grade, right? And maybe no dragons. But I really love this premise, and I really love how Katie set it up and how much her kids loved it. Really encouraged me to want to read it first so that I could see if I think this is something that Addie will enjoy. And I think it is, because I could just see. And actually, what's also funny is Amari's picture on this cover looks a lot like Addie's best friend, Trinity. So I feel like that might even more entice her to want to read the series, because it did for me. Like, I looked at it and I was like, wow, she looks a good bit like Trinity. I think what a great book to read with her, and maybe with Trinity. Maybe we do a group read, me and Addie and Trinity all together. What's interesting is Addie has two best friends named Trinity. One is Neighborhood Trinity and one is Bestie Trinity. And so the cover in this case is representative of Bestie Trinity. I find that it must be a very popular name amongst 8-year-olds, because there's more Trinities out in the world than I thought there would be. Just an aside, just a random informational note that probably doesn't much matter to you, but it's just interesting to me. Thanks for watching today. Thanks for supporting my channel as much as you do. I am enjoying your comments. I'm trying to get in there every day and do a few. It's been a lot of fun. And this is going to definitely be a fun stack. Some of them, again, to reread, and some of them to read for the first time. Collecting books is as much of a delight for me as reading them for the first time and picking them off the shelf and not knowing anything about them, because I remember in many cases where I was and what was happening in my life when I read the ones that I've already read. So, and in some cases I don't always. Some cases I'm like, did I read that? I read that. I forgot I read that. But in this case, these are some pretty powerful ones that I have read, and I can't wait to get back to them at some point. Also, as you know, I always want to know what you're reading, if you've read these, if you've enjoyed them, what you thought about them. If you didn't, tell me that too. Scott will probably have read all of these because he almost always has read something I've read, which I love so much. He's like my book twin that I've never met in real life. Like, he just reads a lot of the same stuff. It's quite fun. So I always look forward to seeing what you read, Scott. And all of you. It's just always so fun to see. And I try to look at your Goodreads sometimes to see if you've read something and what you rated it. But sometimes it's hard. Like, it's really hard to get down to the nitty-gritty of those things. And so I can't always. There's a list of so many people that have read some of these books. It's hard for me to see. But let me know what you're currently reading too. If you don't have any comments, just go ahead and put an emoji in the chat, because those are always fun. And because this is the beginning of March, which is the first month of spring, go ahead and put some sort of a flower in the comments if you don't have anything else to share. I'll just love to see them. I love those little flower emojis. And I appreciate all of you. If you haven't already, like this video and maybe subscribe to my channel if this works for you. I'd love to have you as a community member. We do lots of great things. I just love seeing what everybody's reading, and some of you bring forward some things that I've never read before. So I appreciate that very much. All right, that's a wrap. As always, happy reading. Bye.